Coming to you from Orange County, California, this is the Jug Life Podcast with Max Ada and Chad Wesley Smith.
Hey everybody, Chad Wesley Smith here, bringing you another episode of the Jug Life Podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, magnanimous Max Montana. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing?
Good. And our guest today, Director of Speed and Power for the Texas Tech Red Raiders. What's your guys' little hand thing?
Guns up.
Guns up.
Guns up.
Mr. Scott Salwasser. Scott, how you doing, bud?
Doing awesome, Chad. Really excited to be here. When you told me you were going to be in the great state of Texas, which we know isn't as great as the state of California, but in the great state of Texas, I couldn't pass up the chance to get together and talk shop. So I'm really looking forward to it, man.
Well, we appreciate it. I've known Scott for probably 4 years, I think.
A little over, probably, yeah.
When you were at the University of California, Berkeley, my not alma mater, but I went there for a while and got to get to know you and the staff out there when you were working with the Golden Bears, and now in the Big 12 with the Red Raiders, and,
Yes,
and doing a great job with a lot of talent out there. So tell us a little bit about your role, Director of Speed and Power, and the path that you took to get there.
Well, so my role as Director of Speed and Power, I'm basically in charge of speed development, linear and multi-directional, plyometrics, med ball throws, basically any type of field work or anything that you would do movement-wise and or transfer of training-wise. And then of course I consult and have influence over what we do strength-wise as well. As far as the path I took to get there, I played football at UC Davis, which is they're FCS now, but they were Division II at the time. And our strength coach was our special teams coach, our running backs coach, and our strength coach, and a professor in the PE department. So our workouts, and he did the best he could. I don't mean to badmouth, but it basically consisted of, here's you guys' workouts, don't hurt yourself. And I kind of took an interest in it and did a little research myself, read books, and of course I look back now and I thought I knew more than I did at the time. But I actually had a group of my teammates that I was basically their strength coach. So we set up a schedule and we met, and I'd write the program, and we'd train, and I loved it, man. I was like, this is great, and I actually got better results than, thinking back now, like I can't believe we actually got results. Some of the stuff we were doing, I'd find something and overspeed training. Let me buy some surgical tubing, and
Classic.
We'd do stuff like. Let's see what our 40 time was getting towed, and wait until the dude in front of you, almost had you pulled on your face, and then you'd go, oh my God, 4.2.
Did you guys get into any like strength shoes, jump soles stuff?
Did not.
Oh.
No, did not.
I have I've more than dabbled. I was heavily involved in those in high school. I'm surprised that I still have Achilles, because I was like 265 when I was doing them.
Oh, man.
Those workouts were brutal.
You just wear them around all day?
No. You do like very high intensity, high volume plyometric workouts with them, from just double leg hops to bounding to tuck jumps, squat jumps, high knees, alternate bounding, all kind of stuff. Man, I could get up back then. It was an adapt or die situation.
Absolutely. So I did that, and I was a hard ass. We bought a squat beeper, and you put that on your leg, and it would beep when you hit parallel, and if it didn't beep, it didn't count. So we had fun, and but that basically kind of fostered my interest in it. And I was an English major at the time, believe it or not. I actually wrote poetry, short stories. I was going to be a writer, but I kind of swerved and changed paths. I still got my bachelor's degree in English, but my master's is in kinesiology. So after that, I realized, man, this is what I want to do. So my first actual foray into the profession was as an intern with the Oakland Raiders. And it was mainly because I was competing in Olympic lifting at the time, and the head strength coach there, the previous head strength coach was I don't know if you'd want to say HIIT training, but more machine-based. They didn't Olympic lift. The new strength coach coming in was big on Olympic lifts and was just looking for guys to help coach snatches and cleans and jerks. And I knew one of the athletic trainers there at the time, and he kind of got my foot in the door. And that's all I knew how to teach, literally all I knew how to teach. And I was 22, 23 years old, and Jerry Rice was there at the time, Bill Romanowski, who became my idol, Rich Gannon, I mean, who's who at the time, but incredible experience. Went from there.
That was that's a prime time for John Gruden, the head coach, or
Bill Callahan was, So realized that's what I wanted to do. Went to Sacramento State as a GA, then as a full-time assistant, and then basically started my career from there. But it all started in college, coaching my teammates, really.
Wow.
And it's probably a bit atypical for NFL internship to be the first job, but internships, as a whole, are like the first step. So if we got college students listening or young coaches who think that being a college or NFL strength coach is their career goal, what advice would you have for them?
I would say the absolute best thing you can do is find a reputable professional, either in your vicinity or I know money is always hard, but go somewhere and learn from someone that's doing it at a high level. You can't replace that. Absolutely cannot replace that. I still think to this day, because when you're young, you don't know right from wrong. You don't know. If I had gotten in my first couple years in the profession and seen it done wrong, I wouldn't be sitting here right now because I'd still be doing it wrong because I wouldn't know. Not that you don't learn and not that you don't evolve, but those formative years you're so impressionable. And I'm so grateful that I had coaches early on in my career that did it right and I saw it done right. So if you're a young coach, you can read all the books. And I mean, people like yourself put out tremendous information that wasn't there, obviously, when I was getting young into the profession. The internet was just becoming popular. Not that I'm that old, but it's the truth. And so this type of information wasn't out there. So now you have access to so much information. Use all of that, but firsthand get somewhere and see it done. Because to me, there's no way, there's nothing to replace that.
Yeah, and you'd mentioned the money part of things and that being a limiting factor, and of course it is. That's just a reality, fact of life. But if you, I know you listen to the podcast. If you listen to us talking with Mike Guadango, and I'm sure you or colleagues have very similar stories to this. And Mike was sleeping on an air mattress in a storage closet at the Pitt, University of Pittsburgh training facility, basically, so he could work for free, 15-hour days with Buddy Morris and James Smith, and learn his craft. And he moved away from home to do that. And I think that willingness to be broke as shit, maybe borderline homeless, is something that's lost on a younger generation of coaches. I mean, I'm about to turn 32 years old, so not to be shaking my fist of as an old man, stay off my lawn kind of thing, but people want they want the stuff to be too easy, and maybe it's because information is so accessible and can be just they can access it on the internet. But there is a ton to be gained from life experience, from I think a certain buy-in and ownership of what you do, to have those kind of experiences where you're broke as shit just learning about what you love because you love it.
Right. No,
There's a huge difference too between reading. You could read any one of our books or anything and say, hey, here's what this guy says, and then spending a month with one of us or any person and realizing that, I get why he wrote that, but this is it actually happening, unfolding in front of your eyes when someone's really coaching someone or behaving or all that stuff, training. Everything is a little bit different in person. You have the actual experience versus knowledge, right?
Well, and you can ask questions too. That's what I always tell our interns. Please ask questions, because the first thing on my mind is not going to be, do you understand everything we're doing, right? Like, I mean, we have our our educational sessions, and like everyone does, and this and that. But there's going to be stuff you don't understand. Ask questions. I'm never going to bite your head off. I'll be more than happy to talk about it. But ask questions, because it always amazes me. These guys, and when they listen to this, they'll laugh because I have these elaborate setups, right? Because we got 100 guys out there, and I believe in individualized training. So we're individualizing a session for 100 guys. It takes us like 2 hours to set up. And then they don't have any questions about why this, that, and the other. Well, you know, my question would be, why can't we just do like everyone else and run and touch that sideline and then run back and touch this sideline? That would be my question, right? But when you're in those situations, ask questions. And that was, I actually went back to the Raiders years later, which is where I met Chris DeSanto, who's actually in the Juggernaut football manual, and that's who I'm spending the night with tonight. Matter of fact, a mutual acquaintance of ours. Because the first time around, I didn't know what to ask. I had like 3 pages of notes. I didn't know what was important to know. I knew it was important for me to clean benches and make shakes, you know, and I could teach snatch, clean, and jerk and front squat, but I didn't know what to ask. And so I went back years later for like 2 or 3 months just to, you know, kind of remedy that, be like, okay, you know, this time I'm now a full-time coach, you know, now I just want to be able to soak up some of the information that I was deer in the headlights with the first time around. So, and also on the money thing, you know, even once you start to get paid, it's still not going to be much at first.
Especially when you're, you know, coaching at places in the Bay Area where money
money
doesn't go far.
I always laugh because, you know, my wife teases me about my credit card debt, and I'm like, you know where that credit card debt came from? It was when my first full-time assistant job, and I was trying to impress you, and it was, oh, what do you want tonight? Sushi? Swipe, you know.
You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that credit card.
If it wasn't for that credit card, you'd have said, man, Scott's boring, you know. All he wants to do is study strength and conditioning. So it's not much. I mean, now I'm blessed to be at a point now where I make decent money. But yeah, even once you start getting paid, it's hard at first. You know, if you want to make money, and this will be a bit controversial, but if you want to make money, be a football coach, you know, because, and I'm not, and I love what I do, and I'm saying that tongue in cheek and half kidding, but I honestly believe if I was the same caliber of football coach that I am strength coach, I'd be making 5-6 times as much money, maybe more, you know. So
and definitely a big part of that field is being a nomad. I mean, you go from intern to GA, and then it's assistant. How many different places have you been at?
So let's see. So Oakland Raiders, Sacramento State, Louisiana Lafayette, Oakland Raiders again, Sparta Performance Science, Cal, Berkeley, and now Texas Tech. So, you know,
and even that's probably a bit on the low end.
Absolutely.
We had done an interview with Mike Velasquez about this.
Yeah.
Who is on the lowest end, De La Salle to Cal, and that's it. But you know, Brett Huth, he's probably 10 different places, and it's got to be, you know, if you're serious about doing it, you got to be willing to not make any money and move all over the place. But it's not, you know, probably not the glamorous life that many perceive it to be when they watch Scott Cochran or something on ESPN.
And I'm glad you bring him up, because I think we ask all the wrong questions about the profession. Like, everyone's busy debating if Scott Cochran deserves $700,000 or whatever he makes. Well, that's the wrong question. He'll be fine. Chris Doyle at Iowa, those guys will be fine. We need to be concerning ourselves with all these guys down here that have master's degrees, that are working 14 hours a day for $30,000-$40,000 a year. That's the battle, in my opinion, that we need to fight. You know, we need to raise the bottom end. These guys up here, man, they'll be fine. Even I'll be fine. But the guys at the bottom, that's where I think we need to fight our battles in terms of professional rights and so forth. And if you have a master's degree and experience and you're a hard worker, I mean, what profession pays like that, you know? The bottom needs to come up more so than the top rising, you know?
So you'd mentioned competing in weightlifting, and you know, Max and I have talked a lot of times about what makes an expert, And certainly the collegiate strength and conditioning coach, you're going to be an expert in your field, and your athletes need to be able to see that expertise in a lot of ways, and they can see that through, saying fancy words that they probably don't understand about training and having a bunch of letters next to your name. But a big part of that's going to be walking the walk and training hard. How do you think that fits in, and why that's important?
I mean, it's huge. At the most basic level, you have to be able to demonstrate stuff, because a lot of times they won't understand it until they see it. I mean, everybody's a different type of learner. Some of the kids will be smart and you can say this, that, and the other and they get it. And some of the kids need to see it done. So at minimum, you have to be able to demonstrate it, but there's definitely a respect level there, knowing that you can go out and do it. I keep myself in shape to the point where if I needed to jump into a conditioning workout or whatever to shut somebody up or just to prove that I can. I run 1,600 yards of tempos twice a week, sprint twice a week. I actually do the Juggernaut. I told you, do the Juggernaut football manual.
Available at store.jtsstrength.com. Heard it here. Direct endorsement from Director of Speed.
Direct endorsement. That's what I do. And I do it to a T, because I can't program for myself, because I spend half the time working out and half the time thinking about if I'm doing the right thing for myself rather than just working. So I do that. But so I run and I sprint and I'm capable, I'm not breaking any land speed records anymore. And, there was a time in the weight room when not only could I come over to you and demonstrate it, but I didn't have to take any weight off the bar and I could just kind of punk you out, right?
Yeah, well, that's the most the most powerful motivator is shame. When you can shame the athlete with your own abilities, then you've earned their respect. Undoubtedly.
140 kilos. Oh, you can't do that. What? Let me now. I gotta. All right, let's take it down. But
where'd you start weightlifting at? Like
Sacramento State. So we had a club weightlifting team at the time. So I played college football, and that's actually why I chose Sacramento State to do my grad work. I got a GA spot there, but it was mainly because I wanted to compete in weightlifting.
Who was the coach there?
Bill Kutzer.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever heard that name.
Or Bay Area guy.
I'm sure I haven't talked to him in so long. Yeah. But Bill Kutzer was the coach, and to my knowledge at the time, it was one of the few formal weightlifting teams in the country. And I started out actually as a 105, and I wish I would have stayed a 105, because I went up to 105 plus thinking, well, I'm doing 135, 160 at 105. Just imagine when I become a super heavy, it'll just, and I didn't get that much stronger, but that's just my own personal experience. That's not to say that's how everyone will be, but so that's where I started, was at Sacramento State. And what ended up happening was, once I started coaching full time, my training, not that you can't do both, maybe I'm just soft or lazy or something, but I just couldn't train at the level I needed to stay at the level I was trying to compete at, which was at minimum an American Open, but a U.S. national level. And so my total started to drop, and then I kind of just coached and trained.
It's pretty natural progression, I think, once you're, especially something like weightlifting. It's like you got to focus entirely, powerlifting, you can kind of come in the gym, having done a full day of work, and walk up to the bar and just start warming up, and the movements are pretty simple. In weightlifting, it's like you're focusing. If you worked a hard day at work and you come in, you're a little bit slower, you're tired from work, like getting focused on executing those lifts with that technique, it just becomes like a little bit worse and worse. Monday workout's great, Wednesday workout's not as good, Friday it's like you're kind of starting to fade, and then so I mean, that's understandable. When I went from weightlifting, from doing the lifts to coaching a little bit more, or even just training hard to coaching more, you start to see that happen, where it's like your focus is on how other people are performing, so it's it's understandable.
So you're director of speed and power. So your specialty, let's say, is speed development. As you look out there, people, whether you're seeing it on TV, Instagram, YouTube, other coaches, what are some mistakes or misconceptions you see people making about developing speed?
Yeah, that's one thing I feel obviously really strongly about. There's a lot of, it's funny because it's kind of ironic that a lot of speed programs across the country, even at our level, are scared to sprint, right? Because they don't want to get them hurt, or they're scared of a hammy or whatever. So they run their 10-yard dashes and they this, that, and the other. Oh, we don't want to hurt them. And then they get to camp, and maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe they have a deal with their football coach that the first week of camp, he's only going to run plays that are 10 yards and shorter. But the first time that my guy has to run 40 yards plus, I don't want it to be with him holding a ball and somebody chasing him, running for his life. That's not the first time I want him to run 40 yards, right? And I think we're scared of sprinting, and I know there's a lot of great programs that aren't. Ole Miss, who we actually play in our first game, their head strength coach, Paul Jackson, does a phenomenal job, and our two staffs are close, and he does a great job, and he sprints and all that. But I know there's a lot of programs out there, though, to run their 10s, maybe their 20s, a couple reps, and then, we're good to go. But I think that's the biggest thing. Why would you wait until the sport itself to expose your athletes to high velocities? You're asking for injuries at that point.
Hiring is challenging, but there's one place you can go where hiring is simple, fast, and smart. A place where growing businesses connect to qualified candidates. That place is ZipRecruiter.com/juglife. ZipRecruiter sends your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards, but they don't stop there. With their powerful matching technology, ZipRecruiter scans thousands of resumes to find people with the right experience and invite them to apply to your job. As applications come in, ZipRecruiter analyzes each one and spotlights the top candidates so you never miss a great match. ZipRecruiter is so effective that 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. With results like that, it's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is the highest rated hiring site in America. And right now, our listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive address, ZipRecruiter.com/juglife. That's ZipRecruiter.com/JUGGLIFE. ZipRecruiter.com/juglife.
Well, and even that seems like it's better than the other alternative that seems to be prevalent, and maybe that's side of things is getting better. But I remember doing combine prep for guys from big programs, and like, well, what kind of speed training did you guys do at school? We'd run 110s and stuff that was conditioning and shitty conditioning at that, right. but they were just, everything was long and slow ultimately, right. Rather than
you're 100% right. I mean, that's the battle I think you fight, especially in the sport of football, is because it's real popular to say, fourth quarter toughness and this and that, but when I get to the fourth quarter, I want to have the output to actually make plays. If it's just about suffering and enduring, it's great. I can suffer an ass whipping better than this guy, but that's not how you win games, right? You have to be able to have output.
Yeah, it's like if you only run a 4.8 and the other guy runs a 4.6, well, it doesn't matter how many 4.8s you can run. because he's on the other side of you.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think a lot of that is guys are kind of afraid or dismiss what they don't really understand, So that's one thing that I've always been impressed with you is, even though you're a power lifter, you know the hell out of some speed training.
Well, I was on the 4x100 meter Southern California Championship.
So you walked the walk as well.
Yeah. I was 12, but we did win. Yeah.
But guys, they don't really understand speed training, so they're gonna stick to, I'm just gonna get them strong. We'll go out and run, but this is our bread and butter. We'll understand it, understand it. Like you should have at least a rudimentary understanding of everything. Yeah. I go to position meetings. I go to special teams meetings, not because I think that I'm going to call plays on Saturday, but just because I need to understand. If I'm going to get you ready, I need to understand. I never played O-line, so let me figure out what an O-lineman does, right? Like, I just need to understand, and I feel like that helps me prepare you to play football. Even more so if it was something that was actually a component of the scope of my job. Like if I'm a strength coach, speed training, you would think you would reach out and try to figure out the best practice for that, but it's not always the case.
Do you guys have a program manager or high performance director or someone who's overseeing the whole operation?
We don't. No, we don't. And I know that's popular these days, but here we don't.
Yeah, and I think as useful as it can be, and we talked about this a lot with Mike Gudango, is this one person who oversees, all right, how football practice and physical preparation fit together, managing the volumes and using GPS and all this stuff. But if you have coaches who are doing what you're doing and they're actively involved with the football coaching staff, it's probably not as necessary to have that.
That's the key, is communication.
Yeah.
Everybody loves to, and you see it more so with sports med. This is ours, that's yours. We're rehab. We're not going to take them into the weight room because that's strength and conditioning stuff, right? Well, what are you getting them ready to do? Stand on a wobble board? I mean, no, you're getting them ready. And that's one thing that I can say about our sports med staff. They're very progressive. Part of the rehab process is actually getting their strength levels back and getting them to be able to do stuff, and then I'll kind of meet them halfway and then take the athlete the next step, and then they're able to play, but everywhere else I've been, it's been silos. This is what we do, that's what you do. If there's a gap in the middle and the kid falls through it, whatever, because we have our egos and we're going to stick to what we do. But I think that's the key, is communication. Everyone should know what everyone else is doing, or at least have an understanding of the scope of their job. And that makes everything go a lot smoother, because otherwise kids do fall through the cracks.
So you started to mention this, talking about, if powerlifters or powerlifting-based strength and conditioning coaches, they want to put all their attention to the weight room. They want to, we're just going to get strong as possible, and that's going to make us fast too. You talk about how the weight room can be helpful for speed development, and how, if improperly used, it could maybe be a hindrance.
Great question. So I think in terms of how beneficial it is, I think it's just to the needs of the athlete and also like the training age or level of the athlete. So when we get a lot of these freshmen in from high school, they just aren't capable of recruiting enough muscle fibers to begin with to really have any meaningful output in anything in a lot of situations. So just getting them in a strength program and getting them to just capable of producing more force, a lot of times early on in their career, that's going to get them faster. But ultimately, it has diminishing returns, right? And it's like anything. The closer you get to the top of the pyramid, as you always like to say, the more specificity you need. So if you have more veteran athletes, initially just about anything that increases output is going to make the athlete faster. But as they get closer to the peak of the pyramid, junior, senior year, or once they're capable of moving quite a bit of weight relative to their body weight, especially I'm thinking of skill guys, receivers, then it really comes down to actually performing the task, which is full speed, maximum velocity sprinting. And not only that, but in authentic situations that they'll face on the field as well, too. Putting them in maybe unpredictable situations or situations where they have to utilize that speed, reacting to stimuli and in an environment that they may see on the field.
So what are some of your favorite drills for that one? Because that idea of reacting to stimulus and changing directions, changing speeds, all that stuff, that's kind of when you if you listen to football scouting reports, draft stuff, if they talk about this guy's got track speed or he's more quick than fast, and the difference between like track speed and game speed. A lot of people maybe they get caught up in the cone drills and those kind of agility type of drills.
Right.
But I know that you guys are doing more than that and better than that. So what is the why are maybe those cone drills? Our listeners are smart enough to know that ladders are fucking worthless. But 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 what are you guys doing to develop that high transfer game speed?
Right. So, and we obviously do what would be called closed drills as well, cone drills, mainly because when you're in a predictable situation, you're able to really sell out. And I know the forces and velocities will be high. And there's something to be said for testing well. These guys all want to test well when the scouts come. And so we do those too. But yeah, I think when you refer to game speed, a lot of that is decision making. Connecting action and perception. So if examples of drills, I mean, we'll do, so we might put a DB and a receiver in a 25 by 25 yard box or 30 yard by 30 yard box, and I'll actually use flags like you would in flag football. And I'll say, all right, receiver, you've got to get, I'll give him a destination. You've got to get there without him pulling your flag. And DB, you've got to pull his flag, and you have 5 seconds or 7 seconds, like a football play.
Yeah.
And that's just one example. Or I might attach them with a Velcro belt and say, okay, receivers, you can do a slant release, a fade release, whatever you want to do. If you can break the Velcro, you win, and if the Velcro doesn't break, the DB wins.
Literally separate from them.
And those aren't perfect, but I feel like in conjunction with maximal speed training, acceleration training, a smart lifting program, jumps, throws, that's the last little kind of bit on top that I really think helps us, And then in terms of contextual speed, I'll do something like I might have, a receiver line up and run straight, and the DB will line up facing him, and then they'll race. So in order for the DB to win, he's obviously got to flip his hips, turn and run, but now it's off of a stimulus and his positional movement into a race. So now and then you combine the speed, and then depending on how far they have to race, dictates how. And this is a lot of stuff that I know you've gotten your manual, and it's not rocket science, but I don't see a lot of people doing it.
Yeah, and the thing is that it isn't rocket science. It's like the most intuitive thing of, this looks a lot like football. Maybe it will help football players.
Right, and here's the thing too. Kids like to compete.
Yeah.
And coaches like competition.
And competing is a skill.
Yeah.
Right. Coaches like competition, but unfortunately when I look around the country, I see competition like you and I fighting over a bone, or somebody throws a bag of chips on the floor and the three of us wrestle to see who's all that in a bag of chips, right? But that's just competition for competition's sake. Like, why can't we compete and get better at football or football transferable skills at the same time?
So you talked about some, but let's expand a little bit more on the weight room part of things. So obviously we got weight room meatheads watching and listening to this show. You said a smart lifting program. What do you think sets apart the smart program for the less smart?
I think, and you've touched on this many times, we're never not trying to get stronger. I haven't told one kid you're strong enough. It just becomes a question of where you spend your time. If I've got a senior receiver that squats 500 pounds, but runs a 4.65 or something, right? Like, why would I kill myself trying to get him to squat 550, right? More than likely, his limiting factor is not that, right? So it's not so much that we're going to find strong enough and not try to get stronger, or not so much that we're going to downplay the weight room, but it's about improving limiting factors, right? And at some point, that's not the limiting factor anymore. If you're a 330-pound offensive lineman, maybe squatting 500 may still not be enough, but that comes from watching them play, taking feedback from their position coach, as well as your own experience. But I think that's, to answer your question, when it becomes bad or when it becomes trouble is when you spend too much time addressing things that aren't the athlete's limiting factor just for the sake of saying I've got this many 600-pound squatters and this many 500-pound benchers. If that's what you think that they need to play, then great. But if it's just an ego thing, I mean, it's what's the limiting factor? And for some of the kids, it's friggin' mobility. It might be, they may need to spend more time doing mobility. They may need to spend more time in the film room. I mean, that's what I'm about, is figuring out limiting factors and addressing those, and when I'm 18, like me showing up at college, I just needed to get under a barbell that had some weight on it because I didn't have enough hypertrophy. I didn't have enough general strength. I could do all the A skips and B skips and whatever in the world. I wasn't going to get faster because I had no output. I had no force production capabilities. But as you move on through your career and get stronger, and to me, like I said, there is no you're strong enough, don't get any stronger. It's just you're strong enough, let's focus on this, or let's focus on that, and that's where the drills that we were talking about, to me, really come into play, because I have guys, and I don't really measure speed anymore in 40-yard dash times. We do miles per hour. Just because it's kind of cool and edgy, and I tell recruits, we got so fast, we compare you to cars now, not even humans anymore. But Ken Clark, I don't know if you're familiar with, he came out with some research recently about kind of mile per hour thresholds for relative to the combine and stuff. So we do that, and it's cool. But I forgot where I was going with that. But basically, when I have guys that are running 23 miles per hour and squatting maybe 500 pounds and benching 400 pounds or whatever, like at that point, that's where the next step is, can you think and make decisions?
Yeah.
Because what's left? What's left output-wise?
Right.
I'm not going to tell them don't jump higher or further. I'm not going to tell them don't run faster, but it's like what's left over there. Probably I can make you a better decision maker. And if you just watch, it just came, how did I go so far down this rabbit hole? It came from two things. My own experience as a player, because my senior year, I won our little testing combine, sprint, agility, vertical jump deal. And I was an average player at best because I wasn't very instinctive. I could do what was drawn up on the card, and then that was it. And just over my career, seeing athletes that could jump 40 inches, could run a 4.3, and are getting tackled in the backfield, that doesn't make sense. Well, slow decision makers.
Yeah, and I think so much of that decision-making stuff and putting them in drill situations in the off-season and in practice to practice that skill, that's when you get a guy like, Jerry Rice, or even, was Tim Brown still on the Raiders when you were there too? Yeah, both great
Rod
examples.
Woodson, Charles Woodson.
Yeah, but like Jerry Rice and Tim Brown, two of the best receivers, without a doubt, the best receiver ever, and Tim Brown, one of the best. We're not combine freaks. They're not Randy Moss. They're 4'6", 40 guys, but you never see Jerry Rice getting caught from behind, or Wes Welker, I think, was a great example of this too, a Texas Tech guy.
Yeah.
Wes Welker, if you watch him play, like, okay, maybe he's not the fastest guy, but he's for sure the quickest guy. And you'd think the measures of quickness, 20-yard shuttle, 3-cone drill, what they do at the combine, you bet, Wes Welker probably run like a 3.8 20-yard shuttle. He was like a 4.55 40 guy and a 4.6 shuttle guy. He probably had terrible technique at it, but his decision making and being able to shift his weight a little bit this way to get a guy who's actually faster in a 40-yard dash or shuttle sense than him, to get his weight a little bit off, as Wes Welker knows where he's going and the other guy doesn't. That's the coordination and the real skill of the game. So I know one of the things that you like and that you get access to in a situation like you have is different technology for training. What are some things, some technology pieces that you use and feel are really valuable?
Mm-hmm. Well, so at Cal, more so than here, I had a lot more tech. At Cal, I had a force plate. I had
we got on that.
Yeah.
GPS, heart rate monitors, all of that. I mean, to me, it's all good, but what it comes down to is making it actionable, right? Because in my experience, I've seen so much technology that was not actionable. We gathered data, and it amounted to, oh, this is cool, Joe Blow ran 7,000 yards during practice, and that's as far as it got. Well, you just wasted your money. Like, I could have told you, like, we can watch practice and know if it was a long, hard practice or not, right? Yeah. It's like, what are you going to do with the data that you get? And if there's a system in place to use it, fantastic. The more data, the better, right? But if there's not, then you're just collecting data or just to say that you did. And to me, that's kind of the fence that our profession is straddling now. There's a lot of great people with systems in place to use the data, to modify their programs, to adjust on the fly, to make training more organic. And then there's a lot of people that are just collecting data to collect data and say that they have GPS and we got this and that. Well, if you're not using it, then you're not using it. At Texas Tech, there's really the only two pieces of equipment that I use extensively are a Tendo unit to measure bar velocity and a laser timing system so that I can collect laser splits. And really, it's more so because to kind of coax, I don't want to say effort, but coax that last little bit of output out of the athlete. Because in my experience, there's really three ways to make an athlete run as fast as they can. Number one, all of us get NFL polos with our favorite team's logo on it and stand there like this with a notebook. The kids will run fast, I promise you. Or you time them, or you have them race each other, and I do both of those latter two things, time them and have them race each other. And then the Tendo unit is in the weight room to try to get maximal intent out of every rep. Because if I have a sub-maximal weight on, and I know I can do it, I just do it, right? But if it's, no, all right, this is a sub-maximal weight, but let me see, can I, that fast, fast again.
And can I move it faster than my buddy?
Than my buddy, exactly. So we really use technology for just that, to coax that last little bit of output out of the athlete, and then for, again, competition, because, I'll convert the laser times and say, all right, yesterday so-and-so ran 22.7 miles per hour. That was the best. Can you beat that?
I probably can. I'm not very fast. So.
That's cool to hear you say that. Like you're, something like a Tendo unit where it's probably really easy for a coach or someone with less experience to like fixate on the numbers of it and maybe play way too much into the absolute results and what you're getting from the Tendo versus using the Tendo as a tool to assign a metric so that everyone can see where the finish line is, right? You get 5 guys trying to beat that other guy's fastest time on the bench press as a tool. That's a cool way to use a Tendo versus getting stuck in like hey, we got to have this velocity or this is what this means. It's kind of neat to hear that.
Yeah. And the other aspect of it is a safety component too, because in our environment, I can't stand right next to every kid on every rep, but I can tell them, look, you watch that, and if you see on a squat or a bench, if he's at say 0.3, if he drops below 0.4 meters per second, I better see you right there, hands under his chest, ready to help him, because I know that they're close to failure, so they know now when it becomes danger zone, when they either need to rack it or spot it, so that you don't have kids failing. I hate to see anybody really ever fail. That's not to say I don't want them to strain, but you don't want guys really failing. Olympic lift, it might be a technical mishap and they fail, but on a squat or a bench or something like that, there's really, with a Tendo and vigilant people around, there's no excuse really.
Yeah, and that's going to tie into those real limit lifts. Just don't have, they just aren't necessary for football player, basketball players and stuff to do. It's not going to carry over. It's not worth the extra, fatigue and injury risk and everything that comes with it. So you've been at big programs and in the NFL, so you've had these freaky athletes. And if you're a college football fan, and I'm sure that you're a fan of this list that Bruce Feldman's like top 25 freaks of nature in college football. And I remember seeing that thing, man, must be 10, 12 years ago for the first time when I was coaching high school football and being like, holy shit, I got to show all the kids this, this stuff. So what are some performances or athletes that stand out in your mind that you've gotten the opportunity to work with who are really doing some exceptional weight room and speed and jumping feats?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've been fortunate to have quite a few impressive jumpers. I can just think of this last off season. We had two, and I don't obviously take exclusive credit. You know, the kid has to work. There's other people working with him as well. It's not just me.
Those his parents.
Yeah,
right. So very involved.
We had at our pro day 2 40-inch verts and 2 11-foot broad jumps at the same pro day, which I can't imagine there's very many schools that had that in the same year, and a 4.3 40 and several 4.4 40s, and you know the scouts are not giving those numbers out, right?
Yeah.
That's not me timing them, and that's not me with the Vertec. And that's not me measuring the broad. That's them, right? And they're not trying to hand those numbers out. So I thought that was pretty impressive. At Cal, I had some really good jumpers. Daniel Lasco, who was a running back.
He had some insane vertical.
Over 40 inches and over 11 feet broad jump. You know, and I think you know if you get a kid strong.
Is that guy still in the NFL?
He's with the Saints.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the guys I was talking about this year, Dylan Cantrell, he was a 6th-round pick of the Chargers. And then the other kid was undrafted free agent to the Browns, Derek Willies, the 2 big jumpers this year. And I think, you know, when I think about those guys, and obviously genetics, as you said, play a big part. But I think just them having good strength levels, but then also jumping a lot and sprinting a lot and having the opportunity to use that increased output, because that's the thing, right? It's like you can stimulate and you can adapt, but if you don't ever go out there and actually use it, and then you lose it, or it doesn't become stable. You know, it just kind of disappears into the ether, right? Like, but getting those kids stronger and then saying, okay, let's go out and jump a lot. Let's go out and sprint a lot. Let's use that. And I feel the same way about football, right? Like a lot of strength coaches are like, I don't want them out there doing too much football work. It's my off season, and they need to save their strength for, you know, squats and deadlifts and stuff like that. I'm like, I want them to go out and play football, not excessively. I want them to go out and play football because I know they're getting stronger. I know they're getting faster. I want to imprint that on their football skills, right? It's like getting a faster car. What happens when you get a faster car? At first, it's kind of like, crap, right? And I don't want that crap to happen during training camp. I want them to drive around the parking lot a couple times. Yeah, man, this engine, this V8's pretty cool, man. And then you hit the freeway and you got it going on, right? So, but that's what connects some of those feats in my mind is like, getting stronger, high relative to strength ratios and high rate of force development and high force output, all the sciencey things, but it's improving those qualities and then getting out and driving the car.
All right.
Very cool.
This was another episode of The Jug Life. If you like it, go on iTunes, give us a 5-star review, write us something funny or nice, and we always appreciate that, and it helps more people find the show. In August, I'm not even going to say it because I actually don't know when this episode is going to come out. We're recording so many. Check events, the events section of store.jtsstrength.com for upcoming events maybe in your area. Subscribe to our YouTube, 3+ videos per week with the world's strongest videographer, Shorty Sedang at the helm. If you're interested in coaching for powerlifting, weightlifting, strongman, super total, or power building, all different levels of programs from beginner athletes to advanced, juggernautcoaching.com is the place for that. Max. First, Scott, where can they find you, or Texas Tech Strength and Conditioning?
So my Twitter handle is at @TTU_Coach Sal. And if you just Google my name, you'll find articles and other podcasts and stuff like that, but none of them nearly as good as this one right here. So
the Texas Tech Strength and Conditioning have like a Instagram or anything like that?
No, I'm Fast Twitch 68 is my Instagram handle, so you can see some of the stuff on there. Because obviously I'm Fast Twitch, and my number in college was 68. So
Which all Fast Twitch people wear numbers in the 60s.
Yeah.
You might be the fastest person to ever wear number 68. You should get an Instagram or YouTube or something.
I know,
The kids like those.
Yeah.
Yeah,
kids-
we should. Our
yeah.
personal Instagrams have
Yeah.
some highlights and stuff, but yeah, maybe we'll put together a group
Yeah.
page or something.
Yeah, the kids these days, they love that stuff.
The one thing I am a little disappointed about though is we didn't have a cool sponsor. For
Yeah, I've forgotten twice on that today. I had one earlier and then I forgot to say it, and then I was disillusioned
He
after that.
even remembered the sponsors.
I know, because he's a real.
He's a
he
fan.
likes the
He's
show.
a true
I'm
fan.
a true fan. You know, it's something to do with hair products and.
Now, what was it?
I didn't have one made up. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Sponsored by expensive sunglasses and hair products. How about that?
It's got to rhyme. Expensive sunglasses and 40. No, that doesn't quite rhyme. I was going to go in
Expensive
40-yard
sunglasses.
dashes.
40-yard dashes and
I'm gonna come up with a good one for you
fake
after.
eyelashes.
You can find me, Max_Ada on Instagram. You can find me, Max Ada on Facebook, or you can email me, max@jtsstrength.com.
And I'm Chad Wesley Smith, at Chad Wesley Smith and at Juggernaut Train on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.